Here is part 1, expanded to approximately 1,000 words. Fast-paced, emotional, simple language. And fully safe for YouTube. Part 1, a surprise invitation. Detailed version. Michael Turner never expected anything unusual to happen that Saturday. Life had become predictable. Wake up early, drive to work, come home tired, watch a little TV, sleep, repeat. He loved his wife Jenna, but time had changed their rhythm. They were happy, just not excited the way they once were. 15 years of marriage brings comfort. But sometimes comfort becomes silence. So when their friends invited them to a small dinner party, Michael almost said no. He felt tired, and Jenna had been quiet all week. Still, she looked at him with hopeful eyes. The kind that said, "Please, let's not lose ourselves to routine." He agreed, and they went. The party was warm and lively. Their friend's house smelled like fresh food and cinnamon. Soft music played in the background. People talked, laughed, and shared stories. Michael and Jenna stood close together, smiling politely, trying to enjoy the evening. It felt nice to be out, even if they still felt older than everyone there. Then the door opened again. And a younger couple stepped inside of Anne and Chloe. They looked instantly noticeable. Evan was outgoing, with a bright grin and a loud laugh. Chloe was gentle, with bright eyes and a curious smile. They introduced themselves with confidence and warmth. Within minutes, they were talking to everyone. They had this energy that pulled people in. Michael noticed Jenna paying attention, listening, smiling more than before. It was refreshing. Eventually, the four of them ended up at the same table, sharing stories about travel, work, childhood memories, and silly life mistakes. Evan and Chloe had only been married 2 years. They talked about learning how to balance careers, dreams, and love. They asked questions, not just polite ones, but real ones, questions that made Michael and Jenna think. "How long have you two been married?" Evan asked. 15 years. Michael answered, a little shy and a little proud. Evan's eyes widened. 15. That's amazing. Most people our age panic after 5 months. Chloe nodded. You two look good together. What's the secret? Michael hesitated. He wanted to say something wise, something meaningful, but nothing came. Jenna softly replied, patience, and remembering why you fell in love in the first place. It was a simple answer, but it made Evan and Chloe smile. Time passed quickly. The dinner turned light and fun. Jokes bounced across the table. Everyone laughed. For the first time in a long time, Michael felt young again, not because of his age, but because he wasn't thinking about work or stress. He was just present. Later in the evening, someone mentioned a new rooftop lounge downtown famous for music, city lights, and the best desserts in Portland. Evan's face lit up. We should all go there tonight, he said, half joking. Half joking, half serious, Michael and Jenna looked at each other. A small spark of excitement flickered between them. Normally, they would say no. Normally, they would go home, change into pajamas, and be asleep before midnight. But something about the night felt different. Something inside them said, why not? Chloe leaned forward with a cheerful grin. Come on. One night out, no kids, no responsibilities, just fun. Michael waited for Jenna to answer first. She looked thoughtful, then brave, then alive in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. Okay, she said, surprising herself and everyone else. Michael nodded too. Sure, let's do it. The younger couple cheered like they had just won a game. The decision was small, but to Michael and Jenna, it felt like a door opening, a door they thought had been closed by age, routine, and comfort. So they left the warm dinner party and stepped into the cool night air. The city lights reflected on wet sidewalks. The drive downtown felt like a small adventure. Music played softly in the car and nobody talked much, but the silence was exciting, not heavy. It felt like everyone was waiting for something interesting to happen. When they reached the rooftop lounge, they saw lights hanging like stars and heard soft music drifting through the air. People were talking, dancing, smiling. It was a place full of life. Michael held Jenna's hand as they walked toward the entrance. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, nervous, but in a good way. Like he was stepping into a new chapter. The night hadn't even started yet, but he already knew something meaningful was happening. Not dramatic, not wild, not dangerous. Just human, simple, real. Sometimes one small choice can shake the dust off a quiet life. Sometimes one invitation can wake up a sleeping heart. Michael didn't know where the night would lead. He didn't know what they would feel or learn. But for the first time in years, he felt awake, and Jenna, walking beside him, felt the same. Their ordinary Saturday had quietly turned into something unforgettable long before the rooftop, long before the music, long before anything else that would follow. It began with a joke, and it became the night that changed everything. About 1,000 words, fast-paced, simple language. Emotional, romantic, clean, fully safe for YouTube. Monetization, would you like part 2, explained in 1,000 words next. Here's part 2 of the story, written in about 1,000 words. Fast-paced, emotional, clean. And fully safe for YouTube monetization. Part 2. A night that felt like magic, detailed version. The rooftop lounge buzzed with quiet energy. Warm golden lights hung above. Soft music played from hidden speakers, and the city skyline sparkled beyond the glass railings. It felt like a different world, free, alive, and glowing. Michael and Jenna followed Evan and Chloe through the crowd, finding a small table near the edge, where the view stretched across Portland's shining streets. For a moment, Jenna just stood there, looking at the city below. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Michael nodded, but his eyes weren't on the view, they were on her. The wind lifted her hair, and the smile on her face wasn't the tired one she wore after work. It was real, almost youthful. He hadn't seen that in years. It made something stir quietly inside him. Evan returned from the bar with drinks, just simple ones, nothing wild. He handed them around, joking that everyone should toast to new memories. Chloe laughed, raising her glass. "To doing something unexpected," she said. Michael smiled, feeling the warmth of the night seep into his bones. It had been so long since he'd done something simply for fun. Around them, people talked, laughed, and moved to the rhythm of the music. The night air smelled faintly of rain and flowers. Everything felt lighter. Chloe leaned forward, curiosity shining in her eyes. "So tell us, what's it really like being married for 15 years? Be honest." Jenna chuckled softly. "It's like watching the same movie 100 times. Some days you know every line. But if it's the right movie, you still don't get tired of it." Evan laughed. "That's actually beautiful." Michael added, "You stop chasing excitement and start building something steadier. But sometimes, yeah, you forget what excitement even feels like." The words hung in the air. No one replied right away. Then Chloe said gently, "Maybe nights like this remind you." Her voice wasn't flirty, not even teasing, just kind. Jenna smiled at her, touched by the sincerity. Music drifted in from the other side of the lounge. A band began playing a soft acoustic song, and Chloe's face lit up. "Oh, I love this one," she said, pulling Evan to the small dance area. "Go on," she urged Michael and Jenna. "You two should dance too." Michael laughed awkwardly. "It's been years since we danced anywhere other than our kitchen." "That's a perfect reason to start again," Jenna said quietly. She held out her hand. He hesitated for only a second before taking it. They stepped into the dim light together, surrounded by strangers, and began to move slowly to the rhythm. It wasn't perfect. They missed beats, stepped wrong, laughed nervously. But soon it didn't matter as they danced. Michael remembered their first date, the same clumsy steps, the same soft laughter. For a brief, beautiful moment, time folded in on itself, and they weren't middle-aged or tired. They were just two people in love. When the song ended, they stood close, breathing in sync. Jenna looked up and whispered, "I miss this." "So did I," he said softly. Back at the table, Chloe and Evan cheered as if they'd witnessed something grand. "You two look amazing together," Evan said. "I hope we're still like that in 15 years. They all laughed, but something about his words lingered in Michael's mind. He realized how quickly time had moved. How fast years could vanish if you didn't hold on to the moments that mattered. Later, they sat by the glass railing, watching the glowing city below. Evan talked about his dreams, starting a small cafe, traveling the world, making something meaningful. Chloe shared how she wanted to write stories about love that lasts. She turned to Jenna and asked, "Do you ever stop feeling that kind of spark?" Jenna thought for a long time before answering. The spark changes. It's not always fire. Sometimes it's just warmth. Quiet, steady warmth. But you have to notice it before it fades. Chloe nodded, her eyes soft. That's beautiful. The conversation drifted from dreams to life lessons, from laughter to reflection. Every word seemed to peel away a layer of distance between the two couples. They weren't separated by age anymore. They were simply people trying to understand love. Hours passed like minutes. The sky deepened to indigo and the music grew softer. The lounge emptied slowly, but none of them wanted to leave. They shared desserts, stole bites from each other's plates, and told stories that made everyone laugh until tears came. At one point, Evan took out his phone and snapped a photo of the four of them, two couples from two different worlds, smiling like old friends. "To remember tonight," he said, and Michael, looking at the photo on the screen, felt a pang in his chest. Something about the image hit him hard. Maybe it was seeing Jenna's genuine smile, or maybe it was realizing how long it had been since they'd felt so free. He couldn't tell. He just knew the night meant more than he'd expected. They left the lounge close to midnight. The city was quiet now, the streets glowing under streetlights. They walked along the riverfront, the air cool and fresh. Evan bought 4 ice creams from a nearby stand, insisting everyone needed something sweet to end a perfect night. They sat by the water, eating, laughing, sharing small secrets. Chloe leaned against Evan, and Jenna rested her head on Michael's shoulder. It was peaceful, nothing wild, nothing out of bounds. "Just warmth." After a while, Chloe said softly, "You two give me hope. People talk about marriage like it's boring or heavy. But looking at you tonight, it feels like it can still be beautiful." Michael didn't know what to say. He just smiled, touched by her sincerity. Jenna reached over and squeezed Chloe's hand. It just takes a little reminding sometimes." Evan grinned. Then maybe that's what tonight was. A reminder for all of us. They stayed there until the city lights dimmed and the sky started to pale slightly toward dawn. Eventually, it was time to go. The goodbye was warm, no awkwardness, just genuine affection. Evan hugged Michael, Chloe hugged Jenna. Promises of keeping in touch floated in the air as they walked back to their car. Michael and Jenna were quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. The silence wasn't empty, it was full. Full of everything they'd felt that night. Nostalgia, joy, warmth, and something new they couldn't name. Finally, Jenna broke the silence. "That was unexpected." Michael nodded. "Yeah, in the best way." They drove home with the windows slightly open, the cool breeze filling the car. For once, they didn't turn on the radio. They just listened to the sound of the night passing by, feeling younger, lighter, and strangely closer. It wasn't about the younger couple. It wasn't even about the rooftop or the city. It was about remembering themselves, the version of them that still laughed, danced, and dreamed. The night hadn't changed who they were. It had simply reminded them of who they had always been. Approximately 1,000 words. Fast-paced, clear, emotional, romantic. No explicit or restricted material. It's fully safe for YouTube monetization. Would you like me to write part 3 in 1,000 words? Next, same style and tone. Here is part 3, expanded to about 1,000 words. Emotional, romantic, clean, and fully safe for YouTube monetization. Part 3, we found ourselves again. Detailed version. The drive home felt different. The car wasn't just moving through the quiet streets. It felt like it was carrying new energy with it. Michael held the steering wheel lightly, not rushing, just enjoying the calm. Jenna looked out the window, watching the lights blur into soft streaks. Every few seconds, she glanced at him and smiled. like she was seeing him clearly for the first time in a long while. When they reached home, they didn't immediately go inside. They stood by the car for a moment, breathing the cool night air. The world was silent, peaceful, as if giving them space to feel everything that had happened. Tonight didn't feel real, Jenna said softly. It felt like something we almost forgot how to do. Michael answered, living, not just surviving days. They went inside, but neither went straight to bed. Instead, they sat on the couch, shoes still on, jackets half off, talking in low voices. They talked about the rooftop, the music, the dancing, the laughter. They talked about Evan and Chloe, about how open and curious they were. And then, without meaning to, they talked about themselves. When did we stop going out? Jenna asked, not angry, just thoughtful. I don't know, Michael said. I guess life got heavy. Jenna leaned her head on his shoulder. I don't want us to disappear into routine. He kissed the top of her head gently. We won't. Eventually they fell asleep on the couch, still holding hands. It's like two tired kids after a long adventure. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the kitchen. Michael woke up first and quietly made breakfast pancakes, fruit, and coffee. When Jenna walked in, still sleepy, he greeted her with a smile and said, Good morning, Mrs. Turner. Breakfast is ready. She laughed, a soft sound he hadn't heard in a long time before last night. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just warm. They ate together and talked about little things, the weather, the neighbors, weekend plans. Everything felt light again. Later that week, something changed, not loud or sudden, but real. They started going on evening walks after dinner. They watched movies on the couch without their phones. They cooked meals together instead of ordering takeout. These moments brought them closer than big dramatic gestures ever could. One night, while walking along the river, Jenna said, I think meeting Evan and Chloe happened for a reason. Michael nodded. To remind us what we have. That, she smiled, and to remind us we're still allowed to have fun. Weeks passed, and the connection between them grew stronger. They didn't try to act younger, they just allowed themselves to feel alive again. Sometimes they went out for dessert late at night. Sometimes they drove with the windows open, music loud, laughing like teenagers. They weren't trying to become someone else, they were just rediscovering the best version of themselves. But something unexpected happened too. They kept thinking about Evan and Chloe, not in a dramatic or emotional way, but in a grateful way. The younger couple didn't fix their marriage. They didn't solve all their problems. But they gave them a mirror showing them the love they had forgotten to notice. One evening, Jenna said, Do you think they'll stay together as long as we have? I hope so, Michael replied. They have something good. And they believe in love. It's rare, she said quietly. They both knew it was true. A few months later, Michael and Jenna received a message. It was from Chloe. She sent the photo they had taken that night at the rooftop. It's a picture of the four of them smiling under the city lights. Under it, Chloe wrote, We will never forget the night we spent with you. You showed us what real love looks like. Jenna's eyes softened. She sent a reply, and you reminded us that real love never gets old. There was no long conversation, no dramatic reunion. Just a couples connected by one night. That meant more than anyone expected. Time moved on, but the change stayed. The routine of everyday life returned, but it was lighter, brighter. They didn't stop paying bills or going to work, but they stopped living like life was only responsibilities. They learned to pause, to breathe, to laugh, to dance in the living room when a song they liked came on. One Saturday afternoon, Michael surprised Jenna with tickets to a small outdoor concert. Nothing fancy, nothing wild, just music, blankets, and open air. She looked at him with the same spark she had on their wedding day. You're full of surprises now, she said. Well, he smiled. I'm learning from the younger generation. She nudged him playfully. Don't push it. They sat on the grass, shoulders touching, listening to the soft music. Families were there. Couples young and old. Children ran around. The sky turned gold as the sun set. Jenna whispered, Do you ever think about that night? Always, Michael replied. Not because of them, but because of us. He wrapped an arm around her. She leaned into him. You know, he said, people think love fades with age. But maybe love only fades when we stop taking care of it. Jenna nodded. Or when we stop noticing the beautiful things. They watched the sky shift from gold to orange to purple. The air grew cooler. The music slowed. Michael looked at her and said, I love you more now than I did 15 years ago. She smiled with teary eyes. And I love you for not giving up on us. They didn't need fireworks or dramatic speeches. They only needed each other. Their love wasn't loud, it was steady. And steady love, they realized, is stronger than anything. Months later, on a quiet evening, Michael found the photo again, the four of them, smiling under the rooftop lights. He placed it in a frame and set it on the living room shelf. Jenna saw it and asked, why that picture? Because it reminds me of something important. He said, what's that? That even after years of marriage, you can still find magic. You can still feel young. You can still fall in love with your own life. Jenna kissed his cheek. Then let's not forget it. And they didn't. They kept loving each other. Not in dramatic ways, but in everyday ways. Morning coffee, evening walks, quiet laughter, soft touches. The kind of love that goes unnoticed by the world but means everything to the people living it. Some nights, when the house was still and the world outside was silent, Michael would think about how one simple joke, let's all go out tonight, had turned into a moment that changed them. Not because of the rooftop, not because of the younger couple, but because they remembered themselves. Love didn't leave them. It was just waiting to be seen again. And that night, they finally saw it, approximately 1,000 words. Emotional, romantic, mature, clean. No explicit content. Completely safe for YouTube monetization. Would you like 5 YouTube optimized titles? Description plus tags, thumbnail text, and image prompts.